everyone, welcome to this tutorial, an introduction to AutoCAD part 1 of 2. AutoCAD can be awesome to draft items that need accurate measurements and can assist in finding dimensions that you may not know or you need to calculate really quickly. So in this tutorial today, we'll be going through creating a 2D fabrication drawing, and I'll be showing you some basic drawing tools that you can use, and I'll get you to finish off the project, or you can create your own before the next tutorial. And then in the next tutorial, we'll discuss plan view, side view, setting it up with dimensions, what dimensions are useful, and that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoy it. So we're going to start with a template, and we want a template that uses metric units, and I'm going to choose the civil metric layout. And using a template will assist us in having the current notation on our dimensions and that sort of thing. So go ahead and find your template. So I'm going to choose civil metric, DWT. And you'll come to this screen. So you'll see that there's some form of template here. There's also a properties bar on the right, and that you've got these crosshairs that keeps moving with your mouse. And so what you can do is, if you are using a mouse, the middle button and the scroll that you have on your mouse, if you press that down and move at the same time and hold it down, that's the pan function. So that will be really helpful as we go along. So as you hold down the scroll on your mouse and move the mouse at the same time, that will help you out. So welcome to Paper Space. So this is the space where you can see your final layout. You can use this space to see how things are going to look out once they're printed out. You can add, and just because this is the layout that I chose, you can see that there's a lot of functions. If I just zoom in, this is obviously set up as a drawing set. So you can see that, you put in things like the project name, the date, the sheet number, and that sort of thing. And over here you can see that these will automatically get updated, and that's why they're coloured in grey. I'll go through that maybe at the next tutorial, but this is an introduction just to Paperspace and just to get into some of the functions of AutoCAD. So I'm going to switch over to model space, and I like to draw in model space. So I know there's different ways in which you can draw in AutoCAD. So I'm going to go into model space. So it's just the tab in the bottom left. So I'm going to go into model space now, which is the tab in the bottom left corner here. So if you tap on model space there, so as you can see, everything has gone into a dark colored space, but you'll see later on that like this dark gray will be really useful to see our drawing. So I like to have grid lines on my drawing space. So if you go over to the bottom right of your screen, you'll see that we are in fact in model space. The next tab over is to display a drawing grid, and I really like the drawing grid, so I'm going to put that on. So you can see that it just has this really faint grid line in the background here. I'm going to introduce you to a few of the functions that we have up in our top bar here. So we've got what we call like the draw panel. So we've got all these shapes and that sort of thing that we can draw. And we'll go through, exactly how you can get accurate, dimension shapes later on. And all these sort of functions here are really going to help you out. But the best thing about AutoCAD is the shortcut bar and this type command function. So you'll be able to actually do a lot of your drawing using your keyboard. And so that's really, really helpful, and I'll use a few shortcuts during this tutorial just to show you what you can do. We're not going to use too much text today, but we are going to use dimensions. So it's a really cool function where you can dimension all your work as if you were to give it to, say, a fabricator, or you wanted to show your work to somebody almost like you were sketching it, but this has detailed dimensions like radiuses, angles, and all that sort of thing. So we'll touch on that too. So the last thing I wanted to actually show you was layers. So I don't have many layers at the moment, but I've seen drawings with many, many, many layers. I'm going to stick with one layer today only because we will be creating and just exploring shapes and the different functions that AutoCAD has. To get started, I thought of using just really simple shapes and, creating something that's familiar to us at the tech school. So I'm going to create, we have a tractor graphic for our food and fiber tile, and so I thought about recreating the tractor using AutoCAD. So that's what I've decided to base this tutorial on today. So first of all, what we're going to do is just get familiar with the space. So with your mouse, I would pan the screen so that you have quite a bit of space. Now the scale you'll figure out once we start drawing, but from what I can understand, there is this is quite well scaled, and I'm going to show you a way in which you can accurately draw and dimension your shapes to suit what you'd like to do. So I'm going to, for this instance, you'll see down the bottom here, so in your command line, that you can actually specify a diameter or a radius. The word diameter has a blue capital D. What you can do is if you press D on your keyboard, and then you actually specify the diameter. So if I want to say, and remember we're in metric, so you can choose, so I'm going to choose 500 just because I just want to see where the scale's at. So I'm going to choose 500 out, and then use your scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. So I'm going to stick with my scale that I've got, but it just means that my grid lines have become really, really small. That's all. So this is my first tractor wheel. So next what I'd like to do is actually create the guard of the tractor wheel. So to do that, it follows the same diameter as the wheel. So what I can actually do, so that I don't need to create this circle all over again, is to actually do what we call a offset. So if you were to type in, and this is the great function about AutoCAD, is if you press the, select the circle, and in your command bar, you were to type in offset, and it usually comes up straight away. So you can, type the whole thing, and you can actually preset all of your shortcuts, and that's a whole nother tutorial. But you'll soon find if there's certain functions that you're thinking of, like especially copy, move, and all that sort of thing, you type them straight into the command bar, and it actually will come up with the command. So now it's asking me what my offset distance is going to be. So reminding myself that I chose 500 as the diameter of my my tractor wheel, I'm going to choose 100. Okay. So you can see it's offset 100 mil off the original circle. right? But it can also go on the internal of my wheel. So either side of my circle, I've actually created this offset. So I'm going to choose the outside. All right. So now I've created two circles using the circle and the offset function. Okay, so now we're going to draw a few lines that are going to help me form the guard of the tractor wheel. And this is we're going to use the trim function of AutoCAD. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line out to this very center, from the center to the very edge of the outside circle. And I'm also going to draw another line. So in between the functions, you'll notice that you'll still be in the function even though you've pressed the place where you want to end. So you have to press escape. So escape's going to be, a button you're going to use a lot. So I'll show you again. So if I'm in the line function now, and if I was to this midpoint, I'm going to arbitrarily kind of go out to here, but I'm not going to snap to the line. I'm just going to go past it, okay? So this will make sense a little bit later, only because I've got those snap functions on. Okay, see how I'm still in the line function here? I want to get out of it because I want to do the next thing. So if I press escape, it'll get you out of that function. Okay, so now that I've kind of boarded up my guard, I need to get rid of this outside circle because it's not, doesn't have any part of my guard. So what you can do is to trim that section off, I'm going to actually select all the lines that I've actually just click and then just, move your mouse over the shapes. So as soon as that green box touches a line, it will select it, okay? So just keep that in mind later on when you're doing your own piece of work. So now we've got the lines here selected. We're going to trim the outside guard that I was talking about. So all we do is type in the trim command into the command box there. So, and all you do is you start selecting lines that you would like to remove. So as you can see, I haven't even clicked, I've just hovered over the line and you can see that it's going to remove that line. And this is a really great feature of the recent AutoCADs, which is great. So I'm going to click that line. So as you can see, it's starting to get those lines away. So that's the only line that I want to get rid of right now, because everything else that I can do, I can actually do by amending the lines. But there's always two ways to do things. So what I wanted to do is to actually remove that line, okay? Remove this line and remove that line, okay? So you can create the guard by the trim function. Otherwise, you could have gotten out of the trim function and just amended the lines. So if I undo all of that right now, I'll press escape, okay? And what I could have done was actually just manually amend the lines using my mouse and the snap functions, okay? And that didn't quite do it. So the trim function is actually really quite good because it actually will remove all of the lines that you've selected. So you just need to zoom in sometimes and just make sure everything looks like it's all connected. So next we're going to add a rectangle to this tractor wheel for the cabin part. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the rectangle tool, okay? I'm going to click in the open space, okay? And at the bottom you can see in my comments bar it's asking specify other corner points. So I could just choose that I want my rectangle to be this big and click and press escape. Or I could actually choose the dimensions, which sounds pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose dimensions. So as you can see, you can press A for area. So it's those blue capital letters, okay, for your keyboard that you will press to choose that function. So I'm going to choose D for dimension, okay. Now the length All right, so always remember the length. You can see the arrows around 1500 there. So I'm going to choose length, which goes horizontally across your page, to be 500. Press enter, okay? And now you've got your width, which goes in the vertical direction, all right? And I'm going to choose that to be 1000 and press enter, okay? So now it's just drawn a perfect rectangle. So just click out in space so it knows which way you want your rectangle. So it will either do this or it'll flip it upwards. So it doesn't really matter. So next I want to move this object, okay? So I'm going to click the object, press M, okay? M is the shortcut for move, all right? So again, there's so many functions that you can look at. We're going to use mirror a bit later, but we want to move at this moment. So the move function is really cool because you can actually snap to certain corners and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to snap to the left and I'm going to move it from that corner, okay? And then I'm going to move it to the center of my tractor wheel, all right? So now that I've done that, all right, so next what I'm going to do is actually create an arc, okay? So just to give the cabin the look of our icon at the Bendigo Tech School, I'm going to arc this side, okay? So I'm going to choose the arc function, all right? So I'm going to specify the start point of the arc. So I'm going to start the arc down. So you can actually specify. So if you were to, snap to the end point and kind of drag your mouse, but you're not actually touching any button or anything like that, you'll get the X come up, okay? So that's actually kind of tracking where you are in the space. And it tells you that your extension is at 149.48, 270 degrees. Now, if I wanted my arc to say start at 100 mil down from that extension, I could type in 100, okay? And it would actually start 100 mil from where that endpoint is, which is pretty cool. So next I'm going to choose my second point of my arc. Now, usually that's about where you'd like it to begin. Where you'd like the middle to be. So I'm going to choose this endpoint, okay? And then I'm going to this extension, okay? Now that I've chosen here, I'm going to choose the extension, if I can grab that line again, yeah. So is going to be 100, okay? So what I'm going to actually do is compress or stretch the arc to within the rectangle, okay? So you can do this by just picking up this point, okay? And just moving it to wherever you'd like that arc to sit, all right? So I'm going to choose it to sit about there, okay? And you're going to press escape, all right? So I've just created an arc off the side of that rectangle. So now I would like to have the arc on this side as well, but exactly the same. So there's a really cool function that you can use, which is called mirror. So what you have to do is select the arc and in your command bar, type in mirror, and it usually comes up with only very few letters that you need to type in. Now you want to select what I'd like to call like a midpoint. So how you want it to mirror about, if that makes sense. So it's the mirror line. So if I press the midpoint, okay, and start extending it down to kind of create that mirror line, and just press out and press enter, okay? And now you'll see that I have the arc line exactly the same on each side. So this is looking really, really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim up some lines that I don't need anymore. So remembering the left pan is everything that it touches will be selected. And then we're going to use trim. All right, so if I zoom in a little bit, I don't actually want to keep any of these lines that are in my wheel, all right? And I also don't want to keep any of the lines around my arc. All right, so now I've cleaned up the cabin part of my tractor, all right? Now I'm going to create the front end of the tractor. So what I might do is, use another rectangle, okay? And I might draw this out in space, again, like we did last time. We're going to choose D for dimensions, just like we did with the cabin, okay? This time though, I think I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than the cabin rectangle, and I'm going to choose, remember the length is horizontal, so I'm going to choose 750 for the length, and for the height, I'm going to choose 500. Okay, remember, don't forget to click, and now we're going to move. So remember, your move is your M command, and now I'm going to snap from the bottom left, and I'm going to snap it to the bottom of that rectangle. Okay, so we're getting close, all right? It's not quite there, but what you can see is it's starting to become the shape of a tractor, which is really exciting. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add another wheel to the tractor. All right, so we're going to choose the circle function, and if you remember last time, I made my diameter of the other wheel 500, so I'm going to make this wheel just that little bit smaller. So I'm actually going to make this 300. So I'm going to choose D for diameter, type in my diameter of 300, press enter, and that is my wheel. So as you can see, it's a lot smaller. Now I'm thinking that's actually a lot smaller than what I thought it was going to be. Over here on the properties section, you can actually see that the 300 is there. Now I can actually amend the diameter of the circle in this properties pop-up. So I'm going to change it to 400. That looks a lot better to me. So that's really, really good. So I'm going to leave it at 400. But what I am going to do is just bring it back. I'm just going to move it back there. So that's looking really, really good. So there's a few things that we're going to do now is we're going to escape and we're going to trim a few lines. So again, using your green box. So the way we do that again is by clicking, and then that's it, not panning or anything like that, just clicking and dragging a box over all the lines that you would like to trim. So then you're going to put in trim in your command line and choose all of the lines that you would like to trim. Perfect. All right, press enter. All right, so that's looking really, really good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an arc in the front of the tractor here, just like we did before. So I'm going to snap to the midpoint of this line, create my arc, and then snap to the middle of that line, and then compress your arc down to where you would like it to go. So that's where I'm going to choose mine to go. And then what I'm going to do is actually just create a little bit more of a really smooth edge. So just keep moving those points around, all right? So just to get that exact shape that you would like. So again, use your trim to trim off any of the edges that you don't want, and that's starting to look really good. So I'm actually noticing here that that cabin's looking, quite tall. So what I might do is actually grab the top of my cabin using the blue pen to select only those lines that are within the box. And using the move function, I'm going to move this down a little bit. So you can see that I have got the, I've got my tracker there. So I'm going to move it down. I'm going to move it 100 mil, okay? Type in 100, press enter. Okay, and so now what you can do is you can just amend the lines down to meet the node, all right? And there we go. So what we can do now is we can do a few other things. We can actually move this out. I can see that there was a little bit of a arch in the back of our tractor, okay? And we can also add a few circles internally of the tractor wheels and the windows and that sort of thing. And once your tractor is all finished, in the next tutorial, I will start to show you some different functions, dimensioning. We're going to do a plan view and a side view, and we're also going to set up the layout in Paperspace. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about AutoCAD, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye.